Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to another episode of the Captain's Log. I'm your host, Community Manager Eco, and with me today is a very special guest from the game design team. We have Brandon Scheel. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. You're in Barcelona, is that correct?
Yep. So it's a little after 8 o'clock here. A 9-hour time zone difference between the West Coast.
So, who are you? What do you do here at Scopely? Just give everyone a little bit of information about who you are.
Yeah, who I am. I've been a lifelong gamer ever since I was a little kid. Loved playing Nintendo and board games. Got really into playing competitive card games in college, including Magic the Gathering. So I played as a pro for 7 years. And that was kind of the springboard into becoming a game designer for me. So my first job was working on a card game as a game designer. I've been really excited to be creating things for Star Trek.
You've been working in game design for a little bit of time now. I know you were working on a project before this, and then you came over to the Star Trek Fleet Command team. So I have to ask, what makes working on Star Trek Fleet Command different from some of the other games you've worked on in your past?
It's a good question. I would say there's a few things that set it apart. Some of the games I've worked on have been like, hey, this is just kind of an opportunity to work and learn and grow. This game, I'm actually a huge fan of the IP. I really like Star Trek. I watched almost all of it, so that's a nice bonus. And it's the first grand strategy game I've designed on. So I'm learning a lot in that regard. I bring some of my expertise from other genres and get to learn from the rest of the design team as I'm going along.
Okay, quick interlude before we keep going. TNG or Deep Space Nine?
For me, Deep Space Nine is my favorite series, but Picard is my favorite character.
Wow. All right, then. You hear her first. All right, moving a little bit into Fleet Commanders. For anybody that doesn't know, Fleet Commanders is a brand new feature that we added this past update. Each Fleet Commander has 3 different skill trees, essentially. You can pick different skills to level up. And that is something that's very different.
Absolutely. We wanted players to be able to strategize, and we see players already strategizing about that, which is great, talking about which commanders they should go after, which skills you should invest in. And watching, I don't know, see what the community's saying.
What was the idea behind Fleet Commanders? Why make something like this for Star Trek Fleet Command?
Yeah, we wanted to introduce a new type of gameplay and a collection at the same time for players. So I would say our 2 most important goals, or kind of guiding what we were putting together, was that we wanted this to be different enough from officers and research to create something unique. We also wanted to make sure that there were strategic choices for the players to make on how they chose to progress their commander and which skills they go after.
This was something very new, right? We haven't done something like this in the past, like we've been talking about. What were some of the challenges that we faced when designing this?
Yeah, there were several challenges from a technical standpoint. It's a difficult feature to deliver with a lot of new tech that we hadn't done in the game before. We generally always think of more things to do than what we can deliver on in the amount of time that we have. So we have to prioritize and really figure out what do we cut preemptively, so we don't try to chase too many things at the same time and deliver something that's not stable. From a balance standpoint, we wanted to make most of the skills desirable so that the choice on which skill to chase is not that easy, or it would be different for different players depending on what your priorities are as a player.
Right. Looking at this just from like a player standpoint, like, oh, we have officers and we have research, like this isn't new tech, but from what I understand, it really is new tech, right?
Yeah, this is the first time that we're kind of applying buffs to your ships or to your officers, depending on which things you had selected on the tree, right? So that has to be flexible enough to change that when you level up the skills. And then allowing that choice, that's another big technical change, right? To players to choose their own path and not be able to go through all of them simultaneously.
Yeah, so it's always really interesting to hear about the technical side of things, just because I think that's something that we don't talk about as much. So it's really great to get some of your insight on that. Talked about how Fleet Commanders are different, some of the challenges, but I want to know, now that it's out in players' hands, what are you really happy about the feature? Do you really feel like you got to deliver on what Fleet Commanders were supposed to be at their core?
Yeah, I think we delivered on the core experience that we were going for, and it's been fun to play as a player. One of the things that we're happy about is the balance between Spock and Kirk unlocks from the mission selection. They're fairly even. One of our concerns would be players would choose one way more than the other, or we wouldn't hit the balance right there. I'm excited to see players talking about strategies, about which ones to choose, how to progress them, and see what the players are saying. And I think there's really a good base foundation for future improvements related to the fleet commanders as well.
Now that they're out, how do you see them improving over time?
Yeah, let's start with what I think could have gone better there. I think around the selectable skills and the keys, that was a little bit confusing, not as intuitive as we would have liked. So I would like to see a future where the players could switch their choices on those. We can simplify that system more.
Sure.
It would be great if players could get more information on the mission selection screen when they're choosing between Spock and Kirk, because this is something that's going to exist in the game as new players are coming in and hitting level 15. I think we could probably communicate more about how to get uncommon rare skill points too. Those are some of the top three things in my mind, but there's a lot of like little polished things too that we always want to do, like better UX or UI or slight tweaks to the balance, right? So some of those things might be future candidates in the short term.
Again, we're going to talk about uncommon and rare skill points in the future, but you brought up selectable skills. Like, how do you see them changing?
Yeah, I think there's a world in which it would be great to allow players to select, and then they get to choose from time to time what thing they want to focus on. A lot of those skills have trade-offs, right? They're situationally good. Sometimes it's between different resources or factions. Sometimes it's between two totally different things, right? Like a PvP cloaking buff versus PvE hostile buff.
Right.
Maybe you want to use both of those in your play session, right? So can we allow the player to change throughout the day?
Yeah.
I want to also know what kind of ideas you and the community have for future iterations on Fleet Commanders. What's top of mind there?
Well, I think that is a great segue into leaving your comments down below the video so that I can get all those comments. We have a lot of things that we've been seeing in Discord. Last question for you, okay? And this is the big one. I knew it's coming. Skill points, uncommon and rare. Concerns from the community is just how to get rare, because right now you can't get them through gameplay. And the other sort of thought process behind uncommon is there's only so many levels for your fleet commander. There's only so many levels for your command center. You will eventually run out of skill points, right? Is there going to be a long-term sort of sourcing through gameplay for uncommon and rare skill points in the future?
We have been talking about how to source these on the team. We want to make sure that they do become available. Some places that are being discussed and considered are things like battle passes, events, and I would even say game modes. We want to tie this often to something that's like active, right? So the player can go out and actively focus on trying to earn more skill points.
Right.
No plans have been finalized yet, but those are just some of the things that we've been discussing.
But it's on everyone's radar that we need to be, one, sourcing these until we figure out where they're going to live through an engagement activity. And we want people to feel good about doing the activity that rewards them with skill points, is what I'm understanding. Again, thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's been great that the team has been so open to like hopping on the show with us and giving us sort of background sneak peek of everything that's going on in Star Trek Fleet Command on like our side of the table. Final thing before the closing remarks, and I do want to give you some time to say your piece before we close out. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I will say no, not for me. My wife likes it, and every once in a while I try it, and I'm just like, nope, that wasn't for me still.
Listen, I think that there are a lot of people that will agree with you, but there is a very passionate group that will also break out the torches and pitchforks, and I digress. But thank you, Brandon, so much. Is there anything that you would like to say to the commanders out there that are watching?
I'm really excited to be part of this team, and a lot of the things we've been discussing for next year are exciting to me as both a player of the game and a fan. Though I won't spoil any of them today.
Oh, I was going to try and ask you to drop something. Last time before Deep Space Nine came out, I asked David Eckelberry if Deep Space Nine Voyager were coming, and he said yes. And then I said when, and he said no. So yeah. I didn't know if you had something like that for us. Thank you, Brandon, for being here. It really means a lot that you and many other team members are so open to being on the show. Really looking forward to all the things to come. Commanders, would like to thank you as well for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Captain's Log. Live long and prosper.